everybody to Dharma Punx Seattle. Apologies for those tuning in on the live stream. We have some very awkward audio, so hopefully y'all can hear me okay. Anyways, so welcome. Today we're going to be starting a new list, a 10-week list. So we did the 5 subjects for frequent recollection. There is an additional list called the 10 subjects for frequent recollection that are not the same really at all. They have maybe 2 that are the same, but otherwise they are completely different things to recollect. And the first one is having abandoned worldly aims and values that we seek essentially the middle path. And so with this one, there's a couple different pieces, right? There's the path, and then there's the first part, which is having abandoned worldly aims and values. Like, what does that mean? And so from the Buddhist context for this recollection, this is not trying to say that, like, having become enlightened, having become, the seer of all of the things to see. This is saying, like, I have recognized that there is a dead end in a lot of what society has told me would make me happy. Like, I've abandoned that. I have abandoned trying to make myself happy in the ways that would be normally status quo in our society. And so from there, taking a step onto the middle path, which is a very common Buddhist concept, and can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. The most common way is, the middle between 2 extremes, right? So when the Buddha became enlightened, before that he tried to be an ascetic, right? Living off of like 1 grain of rice and, doing crazy fasting and, staying up and become, the images of the Buddha where he's all skin and bones. That's where that image comes from, was before he went to sit beneath the Bodhi tree. That's where that image comes from. They said that his stomach was, so gaunt that, like, his stomach would touch his spine. That's how gnarly he was. So having tried that, he was like, okay, that's a dead end. And having come from a life of royalty where he had, lots of sense pleasure, he knew that wasn't the way either. And so that's where this concept of the middle way comes in. It's the middle between these 2 different extremes of asceticism and essentially hedonism. But in some ways, I love, there's this quote or this common saying amongst the monastics where they say, like, they're the true hedonist, right? Because, even though they're not indulging in all, like, they don't get all the cool shit like the chips and Netflix and stuff like that, they're probably a lot happier than most of the people I know. So, it's, you can look at that as maybe a more hedonistic path in that way. And so the other part of the name of this talk is the myth of balance. I think that this is a common thing that comes up when we talk about the middle path, right? It's like the middle between these 2 extremes. So we kind of come to this place of, like, okay, so that means we need to be balanced in how we approach things. That there's a dead end in indulgence and pain, and there's a dead end in indulgence and pleasure. And so we try to be balanced. And I feel like anybody who has practiced long enough maybe has come up against this issue of having tried to find balance, and it's sort of like this like slippery fish that like every time you like get a hold of it, it just goes and it like goes straight out of your hands. And you know, and it's kind of this constant cycle of like, okay, you know, like I get it, and then it shoots right back out of your hands again, and there's like this never ending. And what we normally take that as is an issue with us and our practice, and like we're not being strong enough or vigilant enough, or we need to be, you know, more Buddhist or more spiritual or more something. So this talk is aimed at taking a look at that perspective and offering an alternative, trying to come to a understanding of what the Buddha actually meant when he talked about the middle path, because I feel like this balance idea can actually be useful, but it's actually rather surface level in terms of Buddhism and the practice. One of my there's an Ajahn Chah quote that somebody who was questioning him talks about, like, you know, why is it that so many of your teachings are contradictory? Like one minute you'll say renunciation, try harder, right effort, and in the next talk you'll be stay soft, relax, loosen up. And it's like these like two fucking conflicting things. What's the deal? And his response is so brilliant. He talks about, he's like, look, it's like if you're going down the road and you're starting to veer off. And so, you know, somebody shouts, go left. And so he veers to the left. And then he's like, oh, but now you need to go, you know, now you're about to fall into the other side of the ditch. So he's like, go right. And, you know, depending on where you're at. And that bringing in a sort of more holistic perspective of the middle path, because it's not about, you know, me trying to achieve necessarily some sort of balance. It's also taking into account, like, what are the wind conditions on this road? What are other people doing on this road? It's bringing in everything, because you know, we're not sort of a vacuum where we can sort of always predict and control how much energy we're going to have or not have. So I'll leave it there for now. For the discussion today, I guess, you know, I would be curious about, have you achieved balance? How long have you tried to achieve balance? That's your question. And if you're tuning in on the live stream, you can meditate on this topic, journal on the topic, whatever. Yes, I'm talking to you, not this. Thank you. So this isn't a Zoom call. Thank you. All right, how do I pause this now?
Open OBS.
You're saying words.
That one.
Okay.
Mute.
sit that is upright. Allowing the body to soften around the spine. Letting the shoulders fall away from the head. Relaxing the muscles around the eyes. The belly. Letting sound become your anchor. Attempting to try and not ascribe meaning, perception, However, as you come in contact with sounds, you're probably becoming quite aware how quickly the mind is able to put a name, a meaning, maybe an important question to pose is if we have such a difficult time stopping the mind from naming and labeling each sound, why do we think thought is any different? Maybe you've noticed how quickly the mind is able to label what it likes and doesn't like while listening to sound. Often we think ourselves, not purposefully, but the center of the universe. And that sound comes and touches our eardrums. In the Ajahn Chah perspective, that it is us that goes out and bothers the sound. As the mind wanders, becomes bored, wants to think, seeing if what it might be like to depersonalize our thoughts the same way we do with sound. Just thoughts, just sound. Sometimes this can be challenging if awareness feels really tight and constricted and small. And so if this is the case, reflecting on space, maybe the image of taking a microscope and zooming out. The image of being in a broomstick closet and opening the door and stepping out into a larger space and room. Fourth foundation of mindfulness, mindfulness of Dharma, mindfulness of reality, seeing clearly. Cutting through the delusion of a self. As you sit back and watch the elements and senses and past conditioning all converge into one over and over and over again. Birthing craving, birthing hatred, birthing pleasure, birthing pain. if doubt or restlessness, sleepiness arises, allowing for it. You have space for it. The surest way to know the fourth foundation of mindfulness, reality, Dhamma, is if ease is present. Ease can be with pain. If ease isn't present, tuning, fine-tuning the dials of kindness, non-judgment, impersonal. way back to the breath, if that's been mostly absent for the meditation. Tuning into the rise and fall of the chest. Scanning the body as a temperature of ease. Is the body relaxed? Is the body tense? And as we come to the end of this meditation, as you open your eyes, continuing to follow the breath in and out. Did you find balance? So starting with the common term in Zen Buddhism is non-duality. That's one of the things that we're up against and we talk about over and over and over again in Buddhism is this swinging from indulgence, pleasure, seeking, craving, and pain, aversion. And we can seemingly just, it never gets old because it's still present within all of us. So we get to keep talking about it until all of us are liberated, I guess. Until one day we finally fully understand what that means. And, there's that intellectual level of like, yeah, I get it. Like, I crave shit, I push shit away. But you wouldn't need to be here if we had figured out how to escape that. And there's something that with this swinging where it's, you know, it's almost like an Ouroboros. There's even an Ajahn Chah quote that reflects on the way that that yes, there's you know, the poison of hatred is like grabbing the head of a snake, right? Like, obviously that's a bad idea. That's gonna bite you. That's apparent. But grabbing the tail of the snake seems less daunting, but it will turn around and bite you. And that being a way that we relate, that we want to continue to grab for the snake's tail, and then get bit by the snake, and then thus the cycle, samsara, as they describe it in the practice, begins. And it's in my visual, it ends up being kind of like a horseshoe shape. Like there's the middle path, but what we usually do is this kind of horseshoe shape around the middle path, where we you know, try really super fucking hard for a while, and then that becoming gets exhausting and tiring, and so we fall over to the other side, into complacency and indulgence and behaviors that we know don't feel good, right? You know, it's all like, you know, you can eat a whole pizza, but it's not gonna feel good. You know, we can engage with some of these behaviors, but we know that it doesn't feel good in the end. Just like grabbing the tail of a snake. And so what the practice is aiming to do is to center us in between these two. And so what do we normally do when we hear this? We're like, okay, I hear these teachings, I'm gonna try and become balanced. Try and become may not sound like awful words, but in Buddhism, becoming is certain suffering, because it implies that it's something over there, something that we don't already have, something that is already out of our reach. And so taking this more from the perspective of you're already on the road, and being mindful enough to say, like, okay, I'm on the road. Do I need to steer in left, or do I need to steer in right to be closer to the middle? Versus like, I'm off the road and I need to be on the road. And right now I think I'm on the road because I'm trying really hard, but I'm actually over here. There's that delusion where we think that, like, oh, I've got everything just so fucking balanced and I'm so happy, you know, like everything, I'm eating the way I want to, I'm, you know, meditating the way I want to, work is going the way I want to, everything's kind of going the way that I want to. And, you know, then, like, you know, you end up staying up an hour too late, and then it's like, it all unravels. And so what do we do with that? Like, that's just life, right? That's just, these are the kinds of things that happen in life, right? We can't always, you know, we can't put our life in, you know, like a beaker and like a vessel that will just like be just so once I get it there, right? And nothing could touch it. Buddhism being more about, you know, we hear that common Buddhist quote over and over again. It's just like this. And it sounds so dumb, to be honest. It sounds so simple. Yeah, obviously. Obviously, it's just like this. But coming to truly understand what it means, it's just like this. Okay, it's just like this. I am kind of a hot fucking mess right now. And the difference in tone and quality when we say, I'm just a hot mess right now, in a loving and caring way, versus I'm a hot mess right now and I need to become balanced. There's a lot of hatred, a subtle, like backhanded, like you're not good enough in that statement, right? Obviously, we're here, we're meditators, we're on the path. We want to be good, I think, on some level. Some of us more than others, maybe, but I did it.
She's like straight in the eyes.
Some of us more than others. Just kidding. No. I would have looked at Ellie. Just kidding. But it's apparent that we want to be free. We don't need to try to become free. And I know that's one of those statements where it's like, it means nothing until it means everything. But I encourage everybody, you know, and even myself at times, to try to take that and remember it. Because as soon as we start putting freedom on the other side of, you know, certain getting my situation just so, you know, perfect. As soon as everything in my life is perfect, then I'll be happy. That's just not sustainable. And I feel like often, at least in my own life, in relating to balance, like that's what I'm aiming for, is like this like perfect situation where, like, you know, my sleep schedule never fails. Like I go to sleep exactly when I want to. My body does what I want it to. I never get tired throughout the day. I never, indulge too much in something. One of my favorite monk rules, I have a favorite monk rule, which is a weird statement, is that when they receive alms, so they, you know, they have to be given all of their food, right? They can't, you know, just go shopping. But those who live in monasteries, they get pretty decent spreads, like, you know, like a Thanksgiving spread every fucking day, right? And they get to load their bowls, right? Like it can be, you know, a lot in there. And so, you know, the rule though is that, and all the food is donated, so like that's where it's given. There isn't a rule about how much, right? There's like, don't be overflowing your bowl, or don't get too little, otherwise you'll die. The rule that they have is knowing the amount. knowing the amount that is in your bowl. So that way when they sit down, and I had this experience when like I was there, and you know, you have a bowl and you have to like put all your food and, you know, your fucking rice next to your cake and, you know, your like enchilada next to your just like all smooshed together into a thing. And there would be sometimes I'd look down at that and be like, I got too much. And so, you know, there's a version of that could play out where I'm like, I got too much. I'm a fucking glutton. I'm an idiot. I better eat all of it. Or there's a version of that says, whoops. Wasn't paying attention. I got too much. I should eat mindfully so I don't stuff myself. And it's such a very small, simple rule, but I love applying it to literally everything I fucking do. You know, if I sit down to, you know, check something on my phone and then I look up and I'm just like, shit, 30 minutes has passed. What happened? That was too much. Knowing the amount. Can I know, you know, even better, can I know the amount going in? You know, I'm gonna sit down for 10 minutes. Okay, I said 10 minutes. Am I gonna go 20? Can I know the amount, the correct amount? So, all of that to say, I don't believe in balance. I agree that the aesthetic practice, trying to, which isn't, I think I should maybe clarify that a little bit. It's not super relevant here. I don't know too many people in our modern society that are trying to go for aesthetic practices. I've seen people maybe in early recovery try to do that, where they try to take on all the things at once, right? They're like, I'm gonna quit drugs and alcohol. And then they're like, oh, and I'm gonna, you know, this is where it kind of starts to be close to that. And then I have to work out every day. And then I have to add in, you know, only eating like this type of food, and then I have to, you know, and just like keeps adding things and things and things in the effort of trying to find happiness. And so I think that's one way that asceticism shows up in our relationship to and not, you know, I'm not trying to say like diet and exercise is a bad thing, like don't do that, like that's important, but like balancing this with some level of moderation, and seeing that it's not going to always solve everything. So I think the other way that asceticism can show up, because what it's trying to say also is it's synonymous with pain, right? So it's like the more that it could be the more the things that we try to take away from our direct experience, right? Like trying to, you know, do too many renunciations at the same time. Or, you know, sometimes I feel like it can also be, you know, like self-deprivation. You know, that might sort of masquerade as like a pleasure side of like, oh, I'm indulging too much in TV and stuff like that, but it's actually more on the aesthetic side because it's coming from a place of unbecoming. I'm trying to unbecome. I'm trying to not exist. And I can't, and I won't, you know, probably do that in a very real, reality-based way where, you know, I actually take my life, but I'm going to do that in very subtle ways where I can unbecome for, you know, days, hours, weeks. And it's not that hard to do. I think that's all I have. Any thoughts or questions on this topic? I will add, you know, I feel like it's something that I've brought up a lot over this past year. But one of the easiest ways I feel like to know the right amount is always just in letting go. You know, maybe you saw some of that in your meditation today. That if you were able to sort of break away from the self long enough to be in the awareness to see like, oh, there's actually just this whole fucking system that is happening, sort of coalescing in a moment. Sound happened, and then before I could even catch it, I labeled good, bad. I labeled exactly what it was, whether I was right or wrong. And then, you know, all my opinions about buses came in. And off I was on the bus, you know, and just like how all of that just coalesces over and over and over again. And so letting go being the way that we continue to engage with the awareness practice, the not self. The not self is a really tricky one. It's another one of those where I feel like it can be a little difficult to feel and understand in your body, but once it's there, you know, it's there. And so if you haven't found that yet in your practice, to continue experimenting with space, inclining the heart and the mind to space, because it becomes so much easier to let go when you understand anatta, not self, more richly. Okay, now questions, thoughts.
Something came up for me when we were talking about the middle path, because I've multiple times in recovery specifically, I have encountered people who that's their path to relapse. They're being too abstinent. And so they're going to just start drinking a little. Because they want balance, they want to have middle path, right? And then it inevitably brings them into the ditch in some way, shape, or form. So I think there's a delusion there too sometimes.
Yeah.
There's some things you just cannot balance.
Right. Yeah, taking this middle path, certainly with the 5 precepts in mind, that those are your guardrails on some level, right? Renouncing, you know, violence, renouncing lying, right? Like we don't try to find balance lying. You know, we renounce that. We say like that's probably not going to be helpful on this path. We see that. And you know, for better or for worse, you know, it's drugs and alcohol. You know, I recognize that for some people it's not a problem in their lives, but it is one of the precepts. So. Okay, I'll end it there. Donna, if you would like to donate, help out with the rent here, you can throw some cash into the bowl or donate via Cash App or Venmo. Ultimately, all the teachings are freely offered, so if you don't or do not want to, there is no pressure to. There are still a couple of free books up here available if you would like to snag those. And yeah, we'll end with the dedication of merit. Anything that is gathered here today, we don't keep for ourselves. We give it away to those above and below, to the seen and the unseen, to those being born and to those who are dying.
Stream ended.